just want to set a frame for you all. I don't know, probably 6-8 years ago, there was some interest, y'all were kind of thinking about maybe coming up here, but it didn't work out. We didn't quite have the numbers. When we think about youth and family services, and what we're seeing right now is that Franklin and Grand Isle are spilling over into Burlington, Spectrum Youth and Family Services, and even Middlebury sometimes pushes up into that area. And what we're seeing is Burlington is just getting bigger and overflowing into both of these communities and into Morrisville sometimes. But Mark's here to talk about the need in our community for some sort of an intervention for youth that are homeless, maybe a day station. We don't really know what it would look like. We're really trying to figure out the numbers, what the need is, and then figure out what to kind of bring. But there's definitely a need for young people in this community that kind of disappear because they are homeless and couch surfing, but we don't really count them as homeless, but they are. Mm-hmm. So Mark Redman from Spectrum Youth and Family Services, thank you for being here today. And I unfortunately have to run to Middlebury for my census meeting with those folks in my other district. So I'm going to leave. Huh? Oh, okay. So,
okay, so Mark, welcome.
Thank you. Maybe I'll stand so I can see the angles.
Whatever you'd like to do.
So I'll tell you a little bit about, I'll give you the overview of Spectrum as an organization first, and we'll talk about St. Albans. So Spectrum, we're coming up on our 50th anniversary. We started in 1970 by a bunch of ministers. Legend has it that Cindy Lauper stayed at Spectrum in the 1970s, and I've been trying to meet her, trust me. And,
are you a groupie?
What's that?
Are you a groupie? Like
no, but groupie? Cindy Lauper has a foundation. It's called True Colors Foundation.
They have money.
So we try, right, there you go. That's why I want to meet Cindy Lauper.
You're the money man.
Is she just here?
Yes, she spoke at Johnson. She spoke, well, she gave the commencement address at Johnson, Northern Vermont University, whatever. So didn't meet her there, but we'll track her down. So we've been around since 1970. Who do we work with? As young as 13, as old as 23. Homeless, runaway, suffering from substance use disorder, suffering from some kind of mental health difficulties, kids inter exiting the foster care system, inter exiting the children's mental health system, kids who are in the criminal justice system, dropped out of high school. We've worked with former gang members, kids involved in human trafficking, and as I tell people, often some combination of any or all of those things, right? So it could be a young person who's left foster care, they've also committed some crime, and they have substance use disorder problems, or a kid who's homeless, they were in foster care, so it's very rare it's one of those things. So we help them in a variety of ways. If you're in downtown Burlington, you're on Church Street, you turn right onto Pearl Street, and you'll see Spectrum DropIn Center. It's open every day. Free hot lunch, free hot dinner, tons of donated clothes. We have a line of credit outdoor gear exchange so you can get winter boots for free. You can take a shower, you can do your laundry. We have computers, we'll help you look for work, help you go back to school. We don't need your social security number, we don't need your Medicaid number. We would like your name, but it's low barrier. Come on in, get your basic needs met. Upstairs, we have an 8-bed shelter. It opens at 5 p.m. every day. That's full all the time. The front of the building, we have 8 more beds. That's transitional living. You'll actually get a key to the front door, key to your own room. You're going to pay rent, 1/3 of your income. We're going to ask you to start a bank account. We're going to ask you to continue in school, get a job, save your money, and then do volunteer work in the community. You can stay for 3 years if you want. The average stay is like 1.5 years. We'll teach you how to drive a car. I always say I had parents teach me these things. These kids don't. We're going to teach them for the next 1.5 years those things. And then they can move out. I have people on staff now at Spectrum who 8-10 years ago were living there. I have 2 board members who a couple years ago were homeless and living at Spectrum. They're now my bosses. So I think it's a pretty effective program. We do mentoring. We have 108 mentors, volunteer mentors for kids. We started in the winter, we opened 10 more beds up. I convinced Bishop Coyne to let us use the church hall 2 blocks away. So from November 1st to March 31st, we put 10 more beds in there. And we saw a lot of St. Albans kids this past winter. Those beds, in November 1st, there'll be 5 or 6 kids, but by the time it's December and it's cold, that's full all the time too. So we have the jobs program. I think NCSS runs the jobs program here. We do that down in that county, help kids find work. We started a social enterprise 2 years ago. We started our own business. We formed an L3C corporation, which is a for-profit business underneath the nonprofit. We picked car detailing. So on Avenue C in Williston, every morning we bring our kids up. They have their uniforms. They get promotions. Our jobs program, we did that because our jobs program has one of the highest rates of youth staying employed. The federal benchmark is how many make it to 90 days of employment. And we've been around 41% for years, which is actually one of the best in Vermont. We didn't think that was so great. We're now at 91% at Detail Works. So we found by running our own business and having staff who are trained in youth work, we are increasing the amount of time the kids stay in the job, and then they're getting better jobs and making more money and going on to college. So we're doing that too.
So what's the business?
It's called car detailing. We looked at we had 26 different ideas, including Burlington's 90th coffee shop, Burlington's 50th thrift store. So we landed on car detailing, and the kids seem to love it. So that's going well. So we do all these different things, and we've been in St. Albans for like the last 7 years. We have what's called the Youth Development Program in Burlington, and we've had it up here for 7 years. They're in, I think it's Lake Street. Turning Point Center has one half the building, and we're in the other side. So we have 2 staff here. So Youth Development Program, it used to be 15 to 22, now it's 14 to 23. Youth who are in foster care, right? Working with them, so they're with foster parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whomever, helping them to get ready for independent living, right? So how to get through high school, what the FAFSA is, what credit card debt is, what safe sex is, how to drive a car, all the things they're gonna need to be independent someday. They work with those kids in Chittenden County and up here. And our staff have been saying to me for years, frankly, Mark, there are homeless youth in St. Albans. There are homeless youth in this county, and they need help, and there really isn't any place for them to go. Also, I'm sure you all know Linda Ryan. Linda Ryan ran Samaritan House, Tim's House. She and I were on Governor Shumlin's Poverty Council, and every single month I would see her, she'd be like, please open up Spectrum in St. Albans because they have a long waiting list there, and it's really for adults, right? It's more like a COTS type of place. It's not really for teenage young adults. So every time I would see Linda, and I still see her now, she's consulting, same thing. So, you know, listening to my staff for like the last couple of years and really getting serious about it the last year, I've started to come up. So I've met with the school superintendent, I've met with Kristen, I've met with NCSS, all different people, trying to ascertain, you know, what is the need, you know, and how do we do this? So it seems, first of all, I get calls from Rutland, St. Johnsbury, Sue Minter, who's now working in I mean, everybody's like, we need Spectrum, you know? So it's not like this is the only community that has this difficulty. But this, it seems logical to look here, first of all, because we already have 2 staff here. It's physically close, right? It's what, 35 minutes to Burlington? And plus, you have a lot of the pieces. You know, when I look what we have in Burlington, you have a jobs program here. Howard Center's here doing addiction counseling, right? You have Vermont Adult Learning. Thank God, they do all the tutoring for our kids in Burlington. They're right up here. You have the Notch, is the FQHC, right? So you have healthcare. So there's a lot of the components of what's needed, but it seems like listening to people, what's missing is like that physical place, that drop-in center we have in downtown Burlington where kids can come and get basic needs met. It seems like that's missing. And the other piece is missing is some kind of beds. And I'm still not sure, is it shelter beds or is it more like transitional living beds or is it a warming shelter, you know? And the other thing is I struggle with how many beds, you know, because I'll talk to people up here and I know 6 kids right off the bat who are homeless. I know 5 kids, I know 3, but is it all the same kids we're talking about? I don't know. So I volunteered 38 years ago at this place called Covenant House in New York City. They've expanded all over the country, and a buddy of mine still works there. His advice was when we go to a new city, like they're in Camden, New Jersey, he goes, we always start with the drop-in center first. Because then after you do that for a year or two, then you start to get a better sense of who the kids are, what their needs are, how many are out there. Do we need 8 beds? Do we need 6 beds? Do we need shelter beds? Do we need one? You know, so that was his advice, which I think is pretty good advice. Start with some kind of physical place. And again, who do we see? A lot of kids who are homeless used to be in the DCF system. A lot of kids, right? And then they hit 17 or 18. Legally, they can stay in the foster care system. A lot of kids exit on their own. And where do they go? Try and go back to the same home they might have been removed at when they were 1 or 2. That doesn't work out. Friend, couch, boom, the streets. Where you also see a lot of kids who used to be in the children's mental health system, okay? And then they hit 18. And maybe they got really good care at Laraway or Howard Center or whatever. The diagnosis they had that allowed them to get served up to 18 does not allow them into the adult mental health system. It's really tragic. It's not just a Vermont problem, it's a national problem. Or their IQ is appointed to too high, right? I'm sure you've all seen that. A lot of those kids hit the streets. And frankly, a lot of those kids end up in corrections, you know, unless we're able to reach them and help them. So I'm listening to my staff and listening to people up here. It seems like that's what the need is. And now the problem is, how do we pay for all this, right? It's not inexpensive. Anybody who Chris interned with us, you've running a residential program with staff and overnight staff is expensive. And even a drop-in center, you know, if you're gonna run it right and have the right people in there and food and everything, that's not cheap either. So, you know, I guess I'll figure that out. At this point, at Spectrum in Burlington, we used to be 98% government funded. We're about 48% government funded now. We've been level funded or lost federal grants, state grants, and it's the private philanthropy. So right after this, I'm going to Mylan. These people make the EpiPen. So they have money. I'm going there right after this. It took me about a year to find a way in there, but I'm going there to talk to them. And then the people at Ben & Jerry's want to help us. So I don't know. I would love to have a combination of private philanthropy and government funding also to do this. So that's what we're thinking of doing, but I'd love to get your feedback in terms of, is this the need? Is the idea of starting with a drop-in center the right way to go? Should it be downtown? You know, I haven't even looked at buildings or anything like that yet. Where can we get support? And the key to all this is collaboration, right? The key, up down in Burlington, we're collaborating with everybody. Lund, Howard Center, Vermont Adult Learning, community, you know, the key. No one agency can do it all. If one says it does, they're lying to you. And that would be the key up here too. Collaborating with all of your organizations. So I'll end there, and I would love to get your feedback in terms of what I've been talking about and your advice. You want to go first, Crystal?
Sure. So I can just think off the top of my head, Paul can chime in as well. I've got 2 like amazing, resilient kids that are in that transitional age that are struggling with parents with substance abuse, and that's what has caused them to be looking for places to live.
And how old are they, do you think?
I've got one that's 18 and one that is just about to turn 20. So,
sounds familiar.
both attempting to further their education, just really amazing kids,
right.
that just need that helping hand.
A safe place to live,
safe place to
and
live.
guidance. Yeah, got it. Yes.
Well, a drop-in center would be really helpful. When I worked with the youth in the area, and Frozen Ogre over here downtown on Main Street, Eric, he's the owner, and he does a lot of collaborations with the school. Well, he'll have teenagers come in and they'll just stay there to have a warm place to stay in the winter and play board games and stuff. Yeah. But that's a barrier for individuals who aren't into, like, you know, board games or playing, you know, into trading card games and stuff of that nature. But he reaches out and he does his best, so he'd be a good collaboration.
What? Tell me his name again. Just...
I don't know his last name, but Eric, he owns Frozen Ogre.
His last name is Stump, S-T-U-M.
What's Frozen? Ogre?
Yeah, Frozen Ogre.
Yeah.
It's a card game, and they serve frozen yogurt.
Oh.
Frozen Ogre.
Okay, that works.
Him and his business partner, they combine there too. But he's an excellent resource. He has a lot of contacts within, you know, the youth. He's very compassionate. But a drop-in center in the winter would be extremely beneficial.
I'll bet. Yes.
I know our adolescent services team here at NCSS has seen some of the same things that Crystal is seeing as well with especially the 18-year-old population where they're aging out of foster care, or I know they've also had some families that have fallen on hard times sort of thing where they can, you know, sort of support the younger kids, but the older kids kind of might be out on their own sort of thing. So the team leader for that is Heather Getty. And
Yeah, Heather, I met Heather like a year ago. Yes,
She's
yes.
very interested in this.
Yes, good. Yes.
So your drop-in center concept basically is going to be something that would be open during the day, like Frozen Ogre,
Yeah.
where the kids come in, they've got warmth, they get meals, they can access help. You can get them tied up with Vermont Adult Learning or whoever they need to. Yeah, that would seem like a good way to start. It'd give you a feel for exactly what level of what the level of people and
And do
number
you think
of
it
people.
needs to be downtown?
I would think you want it to be reasonably close to the downtown area where you're going to catch the majority of the people.
Closer to Tent City.
Closer to where? Tent City?
Tent City, yeah. It's the, sorry if I spoke out of turn.
No, that
Over by like Family Dollar, or the dollar store
Yeah,
/ laundromat for the
It's
city.
in the woods behind Food City, Family Dollar, right actually near your office.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, City PD cleans people out of there weekly
Wow.
because it's owned by the railroad.
Got it.
No,
Okay. Yes.
The, I don't work there anymore, but very aware that the public library is the default drop-in center for that population.
I would also say close to the public transit, you know, the limited public transit that we do have. You want to be close to the bus drop-off points.
Got it.
And if you haven't talked to Brother Bob at Martha's Kitchen,
Yes.
he'd be an amazing resource.
Yeah, I met him a few months ago. He does an amazing job, it's true.
And he would know a lot of the homeless youth that are
Yeah,
coming
he
in for
probably would.
meals.
Yeah.
I think also, like, what we don't have is, like, I have, like, one kid now that is homeless, and he's not the first, but the needs of his needs are far beyond what I can offer, and I am having that hard decision today. It's like, what do I do if, you know, I don't want him to not have a home, but I also know that I can't bring him into the fold of what our family's doing. And
Yeah.
he doesn't.
And how old is he?
Just turned 18
See,
and got
this
kicked out of his
18
house
is like the-
that day.
It's
Happy
like
birthday.
a cliff.
Yeah.
It's a cliff.
Yeah.
You know?
And I know the path. I lived it. So it's like it's tough decision, but you know, if there was a place that he had, you know, where you have your drop-in center, you have your few beds,
Right.
you know, and you know, he's so deficient in skills on how to help himself that he just can't get it. And you know, simple things.
Yeah,
you know.
I know.
It's
I know.
just, he has such needs that
Right.
it's, I mean, basic living skills, but his education is, you know, he's on the 20-25 year graduation plan, and, you know, he just deals with a lot of shame over lots of adversity that it's not at his fault, but
Exactly.
getting him to draw the line and move forward is just like, okay, this sucks, but just really can't do it. And it's affecting my household.
I'll bet.
I have a house full of teenagers and other kids who show up for dinner or
Yeah.
breakfast or my couch that, I don't know if they're exactly homeless, but yeah, I go through a lot of,
Precariously housed,
Yeah.
right? The term
Yeah.
has been
Right.
used.
you know.
Yes, sir.
And have you spoken to the mayor? Because Tim is also executive director of the Industrial Development.
That's right.
Corporation.
I
And
did.
know a lot of facilities that may be available or something like that, so.
So I did. I met with Liz. I knew Liz when she was mayor, and then I met with Tim. Then I met with Denise, his wife. I've met with her before. She's part of Rise Vermont. So I've met with all. Yeah. So I've tried to go around and meet with all those folks. They're all in favor, and Dominic Cloud too.
Yeah.
Right here and then there. Yes.
The Franklin Green Down Reserve Justice Center.
So that's Nina.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Right. And Bo. Right. Yeah.
The barge program.
Yeah,
They're-
yeah.
they're-
Yeah. They would be a big referral source, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
Well, I was just thinking of transportation, and Grand Isle struggles with the transportation piece, as well as resources, but Robin Way, who is part of CIDR, who does a lot of the transportation services in Grand Isle, would be a huge resource. He's already transporting, I don't know how many people from Alberta every day to the barge facility. So he's really restructured his transportation
Okay,
mission.
got it.
So.
Good. Yes.
So for youngsters or older teens and young 20s who are actually, you made me think of it, Crystal, who are motivated and they have a lot of resiliency, but they don't have support and they're trying to further their education. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's like University of the People or the People's University, or maybe it's College of the People or the People's College. It's strictly online with a sliding scale that's down to 0 for tuition. Strictly online, accredited. All the professors are volunteers. And you can Google around and find it. And so if somebody has the organizational and motivational skills, that's a great opportunity. And I think their curriculum or their list of degrees that are available isn't huge, but it may serve some of those kids.
Sure. Good. Yes.
That's the thing. You talk about your transitional employment work in the Burlington area for youth here specifically in cold months is a thing. And so I know there's some work starting with that with adults, but for youth that becomes an issue. I don't know if there's some sort of public works combination with the city of St. Albans or something like that with Dominic.
Got with Dom, okay.
Yeah, with Dom.
Who is NCSS run the jobs program? They help.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's part of that is helping find employment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's who our adolescent services team.
Yeah, that would
And
be
that's the
really
Heather
key.
Getty connection that
Right.
Michelle mentioned.
So we'd have to work very closely with them. Yes.
Bart, anyone over 18, who has any sort of use disorder, who is, in the state of coming in for recovery or just to start that, they're free to come in. We can help them find a grant or work with Medicaid. And then on top of that, individual counselors, such as myself, not only provide counseling, but we provide, case management, and within the counseling, we create a treatment plan. So say, for instance, the barrier within their treatment for their recovery is employment, or is, education. We work with them to either find the resources, or when they're meeting with us, for an hour, however long they need, we would address those during that time. So, we're available, to be able to help out. And, we want to work with community partners as much as possible.
Great. So that's a great resource.
I'd also put Tim Cummings from the ESPER program at Northwestern Medical Center probably on your list, because they're doing youth services now as well. So they're screening anyone ages 12 and up.
Okay.
Yeah. I can give you Tim's contact number.
Tim, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Just email me in here.
Email's in here.
Okay.
I guess one of the things I asked is, like, as you're going to talk to our local businesses, is that geared to having that funding stay in our community, or is it to help support?
Yeah, no, it would be for up here.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, you don't have the taverns and the pizza. Down there, it's like the land of milk and honey with, the pizza galleys and the, so whatever we would raise up here it would go to fund this. Like the Myland people, I'm talking about St. Albans,
Okay.
So Ben and Jerry, same thing.
Okay.
So yeah, I would have to. Yes, Chris.
What are the community dollars that are available in Burlington that may or may not be replicable up here? So you're talking about, I think you said like 45% sort of grant funded or federal or state and federal funded. What kind of resources do those look like, and what would be available up here, do you think?
You're all a lot of you are publicly funded. I met with the DCF commissioner recently, and I like him a lot. And I'm like, we've been level funded the youth development program for like 9 years in a row, which is ridiculous. I'm now using money that I get from this events we do to supplement the public dollars, which is frankly not right in my view. This is work that the state of Vermont legislatively is mandated to do. So, then we do get Medicaid, so we do a lot of substance abuse counseling. We can get Medicaid, we can build insurances, we get some ADAP money, but that's been level funded too. So it's kind of the perennial problem, right? Where it's been level funded, but your health insurance goes up, you have to pay staff a little more, and so the only thing saving our bacon is we're pretty good at raising private dollars, but that's a tough way to do it, knowing your expenses are going to go up. Vermont Works for Women, there you go. My wife used to work there. Yay.
And Mark, you get United Way funding.
We do get them.
Yes.
United Way has our back. Thank you. Love United Way.
Yeah, love
We
United
never
Way.
diss United Way. Yes, right there.
I love the model that you have downtown because your building allows for the drop-in center on the first floor and then some transitional
right.
housing on the second floor. So I would love to see a model like that up here.
Yeah.
Especially the women that I work with that are coming out of corrections. And I mean, some of them have to stay in jail because they don't have approved housing. They're eligible for release, don't
Oh,
have
that's a
that.
huge problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know.
huge problem.
Yeah.
So I would love to see some more transitional housing beds up here.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I mean, you're right. A big plus that we have is, especially the kids we work with. If they need a job, we're not saying, well, the Department of Labor is down at the bottom of Pearls. They're probably not even going to get there, you know? But like, no, we have the jobs worker right here in the building, you know? And the substance abuse counselor and everything else. Yes?
Suggest you get you on the docket to speak to Rotary.
Yeah, I'm doing that in December.
You
So
are, right?
Liz
Okay.
got me a spot
Okay.
in December. Yeah, I've been told the Rotary is pretty active up here and very involved.
And really targeting youth and that sort of thing.
Mhm,
One
mhm.
projects we've done and been directed.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah,
Young
yeah.
children.
Who got me in? Liz and Valdemar, Gary?
Valdemar, yeah, you're
He
amazing, yeah.
set me up, yeah. So we got that.
Would it be worth our while to pull all the people you got together on your list, kind of identify what the needs are, identify who the partners are who are already providing bits and pieces of these things, and then identify where the gaps are, so when you're going out to talk to potential funders or businesses, you can say, no one's providing this service.
Yeah,
here.
Vermont
This
Adult
is
Learning is doing this, NCSS is doing this, Howard Center is doing this, but nobody's doing the drop-in center and nobody's doing actual beds. You're right, that would be, you could actually do like an infographic of that and say, these are the things that we need. I mean, St. Albans, there's a lot of other communities. St. Johnsbury doesn't have a lot of this stuff, I can tell you. Like, trying to build it there would be filling in a lot of gaps. Yes?
I think when I look at youth that show up at other services, whether it's school or anywhere, or young adults, I think we can count them as homeless, but there is a whole layer of young adults and youth that don't show up at any of these services when they get pushed out of school. You don't see them. And I mean, you don't see them at other agencies, you don't see them anywhere. They're just couch surfing. And
Yeah.
you know, when we do our homeless count, I don't even think those kids even are considered, because you can't, when we start with our agencies and move out that way, it's very quick that you get to kids who are just
Yeah.
surfing around and are living off the good graces of everybody, every couch owner, so to speak.
I think that homeless count grossly undercounts the
Oh,
numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
ridiculous.
I know we have to do it, the feds
Yeah.
make us do it, but it's missing a lot of people.
Right.
Absolutely.
Really.
All of Grand Isle.
All around, really. They
We
don't
have
even,
zero because there's no shelter, there aren't any services, like, it's
Yeah,
only zero.
right.
We know that's not true.
it can't be true. No. Yes.
If you think about using the drop-in center as sort of a barometer to gauge what level of, beds and services you might need, it'd be important to try to pull in kids from all the surrounding communities, because there's a ton that are
Yes.
in Berkshire and Enosburg, and they just don't come to St. Albans because
Right.
more than anything else, they just can't get here, so they're surviving in their social circles in those little communities, on the islands, a ton. And it'll be important to try to pull them into that, include them, because if you just think about who's going to access it in St. Albans, again, that's going to grossly underestimate. I think,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Occasionally we have a bed open down in Burlington. I'll say to the staff here, if you have a kid, we have a bed open, and they'll be like, most of the St. Albans kids are frightened, or they look at it like Manhattan, and they're like, the Richford kids are frightened of St. Albans.
Yeah.
They look at St. Albans like it's Manhattan. So you're right. There is a whole swath of youth out there. Besides
in that
just-
sense, the schools are probably your best friend. The schools are going to tell you who a lot of those kids are.
So I was meeting with Randy Brock for the first time. What's the coffee shop here? The Traveled Cup or something?
Yeah.
So I never met him before. I'm telling him this whole thing. There's a woman seated behind us. She's having her coffee. Randy goes up to leave, and this woman turns around and says, "I'm so sorry I eavesdropped on your conversation, but I'm a high school teacher. I heard what you told him. I hope to God you open this because there are so many kids like that. I hope you succeed." It was really amazing to hear that.
I also work with school nurses, and so they would be another referral system.
Yes, exactly.
Because a lot of those kids are presenting with the headaches and the belly pain.
Right.
Because of stress.
Exactly.
I think the challenge we have too, the ones who are precariously housed, but as soon as they drop off the radar screen, they very quickly have their cell phone shut off, and then they just disappear.
Right.
And trying to find them at that point is impossible.
Really tough. Right. Chris.
I'm hesitant to propose an additional meeting to anyone's sort of monthly agenda, but while I was working in Burlington, the meeting Transition Age Advisory Team
right. Yeah,
that Gina convenes down there.
Right.
That might be a really effective forum for a subset of this group to try and replicate, to continue to drill down at identifying potential referral sources, partners that might assist you in the services that you'll need to kind of package for those youth. And I wonder about.
So they were looking at, it was somebody from Jobs, right? Because they deal with that, but somebody from Howard, right?
So it's essentially Spectrum, Howard, and the Jobs collaboration, between those agencies, as well as someone I think like Kristen's role, a field director of some kind, and maybe a public health representative that has connections, and then maybe a Burlington High School rep, maybe a school counselor or something like that.
Right, that's right.
And that's a really effective forum to identify kids, useful services, as well as then to start identifying treatment opportunities and how they can be supported.
Especially if they're coming up on 18 and they're not going to make it into the adult mental health system.
Certainly a DCF representative too.
Yeah,
I think that's an effective.
Right, because they know. This is great. Yes?
A question, you talk about 18 being the cliffs, but as these kids age, is there another cliff that they reach when they're considered?
That's a really good question. Yeah. I mean, we have a hard stop for living with us at age 22 because we do get some federal funding. And plus, there is this thing at some point they have to kind of, now they can still go on past that for food and clothing and counseling and things like that. So, yeah, our job, which is a tough job, is to really, 18 to 22, you have 4 years, and to really work with them and build up all the life skills, independent living skills, savings, everything else, so that they can move on. So there was actually DMH, they don't do it, they actually have a graph that shows you in Vermont, age 0 to 18, and then it goes up to 21. How many kids are in the Department of Mental Health system? Age 0, age 1, age 2, and it actually goes 17, 18, and then it goes like that.
Yeah.
And then actually, these, what they labeled it? The cliff, but they took that off. They were so embarrassed by it. But I mean, we're saying to somebody at DMH, like, where did those kids go? Where did they go? And somebody said, "Oh, we helped them all. They all got better." I was like, "Really?" I was like, well, "Go to my DropIn Center, go to my shelter, or sadly, go to a prison, and that's where you'll find them." I mean, yeah, maybe some of these kids we transition them to, but I mean, a lot they are just dropping off the radar. Because we have these new requirements. You have to have an IQ under 70. You have to have this diagnosis. And if it's not the right diagnosis, sorry, we can't help you. So we really kind of triage. And those are the kids who we want to catch. That's right.
I think, the population is like, you have a lot of kids in DCF, you have a lot of kids that have mental health, or maybe youth substance use, but there's a whole population of kids who have great adversity and are hugely resilient, but need that guidance and that push and that, the way you've grown up and adapted to the world, now we need to move you so that you can adapt differently. I mean, those kids are counted nowhere. They're not, they don't come up on DCF's radar in such a way, they might pop up, but no actions are taken because they're able to turn it around for a short period of time until the next time and then the next time. And those are the kids too
those are the kids I get.
Yeah, I get all the time, and these kids want to go to college, but I'm like, great, but truant for 4 years of school, or, you know, because you've had to do what you need to do to survive, those kinds of things, and those skills and help and connection just is
Yeah, I know.
a huge investment. And so
I mean, I got an email from a kid yesterday. Hey, Mark, I'm graduating in December with my bachelor's degree in business. Will you go to my graduation? I mean, I knew him 5 years ago. He was 4 sheets to the wind, you know? I mean, a really bad shape. And there was a lot of starts and then this, and he dropped out, but he made it. Why? Because he had a place to live.
Right.
Having a place to live is so key. We know that now from all the work that Sam, I forget, Samberis has done with housing even for adults. Like, you need a place to live. And then we can start working on addiction and mental health and job and all that stuff. So that's key. It's really key. Anybody else before I go?
I would add Lieutenant Weatherby from St. Albans Police Department on your list. He's been super involved with mental health services and addiction services, and I know that that's been a thing for him, was trying to figure out what to do with youth that just don't belong in the system.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met with Chief Taylor about a year ago, but I'll look him up.
Lieutenant Weatherby, he gets it.
Okay, all right, good, very good.
So there's the resource officer, and he might be on his way to retire, but it's, what is his name?
Kevin Cleary from
Thank
Swanton.
you, yeah, Kevin Cleary.
Okay.
Also, yeah.
Really.
What's
he
the
gets it.
Enosburg?
He gets it as well.
Good.
Enosburg is Jim Lynch.
Yep, Jim Lynch from St. Albans, Franklin County Sheriff.
I would say
Okay.
any of your SROs.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
understanding and they
Yeah,
get
I think
the
they're the ones
Those
that are-
3 guys get it.
They're
Okay.
trying to keep kids from ending up in the corrections system.
That's the idea.
So
We all lose. You're in the legislature. What does it cost to house somebody in a prison? It's outrageous, right?
89,000 a year for females.
Right.
Yeah.
For males, it's like
60.
55 or 60.
Yeah.
Yeah. and-
$60,000 for men.
And that's not Medicaid.
No.
And
Tax dollars.
The national number's 52.
one of the things I learned is that one reason why it's more expensive to house female inmates is because many of them have never ever had any kind of health or mental health care in their entire lives, and they need a lot of help.
They need a lot of help. Exactly. And prison is like the least likely place, you know. I mean, they try, but it's like the most untherapeutic place anybody could ever go.
We don't have any services for health of any, quality of any health across the board in our corrections
In the
system.
correction system.
Period. I mean, anywhere in the country, and so Vermont is no different,
Well,
but, you know, it's.
My wife's in the legislature, Sharon. She's on her way to Springfield Prison right now, leaving a little tour. So I'll have
She
to.
sits right next to me on human service.
Oh, you're the one she talks about? She loves you. She loves you. She loves all of you.
Text her to wander off or to push off the guided tour that she gets. What's going on over here? Why is that?
Oh, I know.
She'll
She
be
used to
a-
work in a women's prison, so she's quite familiar with the guided tour they give you and, you know, what really goes on.
And I had an interesting conversation with somebody when I was campaigning about a year ago who was a convicted sex offender and said, you know, they give you treatment or they're, you know, a little program just before you're released, but the whole time you're sitting in prison, you're getting nothing. And they expect it to work when, you know, just for this really short
Yeah, at the end.
period of time, right, just before you're released.
Yeah.
I feel like that's you know, not just for sex offenders, but for people who are struggling with all kinds of
All
things that,
emotional difficulty. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We have to, depending on your risk level, would be depending if you even qualify for treatment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. I think the other thing when you think of substance users that they will say, oh yeah, we're going to set you up for treatment and start to provide medicated assisted treatment, but the gap that still happens for whatever reason is still a huge danger. That why
Yes.
can't we just set through, you know?
Tarion and we're working better on that. They just hire someone into like kind of
Way
plan.
better. Yeah. Still, you know, we've lost 3 or 4 people since we've implemented this thing in this community alone. So, yeah, it's just more to be done.
All right, so I'm gonna stay real close to Kristen as I move ahead on this, and I'll keep her informed. She can keep all of you informed, and I'm gonna reach out to a lot of these folks, and some of you I already know. So this is this glossy thing we put together. A case for St. Albans expansion. It kind of encapsulates what I told all you folks verbally, so you can each get one of those. Wish me luck at my land, wish me luck at Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah.
We do this thing called the sleep out. Have you ever heard of the sleep out?
Yeah.
Right? That thing raises $300,000 a year. It was something I saw on Facebook 8 years ago. And we get all these business leaders, and we got the president of Ben & Jerry's to do it last year. And I'm meeting next week with the new woman who runs, you're the plant?
36 years for me. So I work and live in Charlotte, Vermont. So I have a vital interest in making sure, as I'm sure you do, that we count everybody, count them once, count them in the right place. We are mandated by Article 1, Section 2 of the United States Constitution to count everybody in the United States physically. Every 10 years, with years ending in 0. We've been doing that since 1790. But the Bureau does other things besides that, probably a number of things that the folks in this room are familiar with because you use census data. At any given time, we have about 130 different surveys that are going. One, there's a tremendous amount of interest to me as we move forward towards 2020 is the American Community Survey, which you can find on the Census.gov website. There's a tool called ROAM, which is Response Outreach Area Mapper. We call it ROAM because we like acronyms in the federal government. And you can find that, it's right on the site, and you can click on any census tract in the United States, and it will give you a ton of detail in terms of what's going on in that tract. What's of interest to me is that it gives me a predicted non-response rate if we were to conduct the 2020 census today. So it allows me to zero in on those tracts that have those high non-response rates. And it also has a pointer in a way towards what we consider the typical hard-to-count communities. So there is that. The census is important, basically for two different reasons. One, not so much for Vermont. It determines the number of representatives that any given state has. The threshold is 750,000. I moved to Vermont on January 1st, 1984. The population was about 602,000. Then it's about 623,000 36 years later. So we're probably not going to get to 750 anytime soon. It is important in a number of states that stand to gain or lose seats. So there's tremendous legislative and executive activity in those states to make sure they do get a complete count. But it's important in Vermont because it determines $675 billion in federal funding that is distributed across the states. And there are 55 different programs that are, the funding is determined by the decennial 10-year census. Some of the ones that you're most familiar with are Medicaid, SNAP, Section 8 housing, school lunch programs, special ed. So it is vital in Vermont that we gain a complete count. It's also safe. A lot of people don't realize this, but we operate also under Title 13 of the U.S. Code, which means we don't share our data with anybody else in the government or outside of it, other than general statistics. We do not share data with ICE. We don't share it with Homeland Security. We don't share it with the FBI, the CIA, and we are not superseded by the Patriot Act. This has been tested in court. It's held up. Safe. So, and we don't look for a lot of personal identifiable information to begin with. We're primarily address-based, so that when we start at the first of the year, it'll be mailings that go out to addresses. And there are codes on that for that address, so that when somebody responds, it's the code really that's being responded to. There are some things with names, but we're not interested in social security numbers, anything like that. If we do get it, we store it offline. If we don't want it, if we get it, it goes offline, and we don't share it. The other thing with this census, it is the first one where you can respond either via internet or via telephone, in addition to the traditional methods, which are paper, or if we have to send what we call the enumerator out, which Jill will talk a little bit about in a minute. The enumerators, if we, well, let me back up. Internet and telephone, 12 different languages besides English. Paper, if we need it, or the enumerator, everybody thinks of them with clipboard. Well, it's an iPad these days, and it has 59 different languages on it. I did manage to find one in Burlington that's not written. We'll address that as we go forward. It's one of the African languages, mine. But, so that's how that works. From the standpoint of actual counting, We will begin census days April 1st, 2020. As we get to the end of this year, you will start to see the advertising start, and it will be a lot of it. The first media buy is about $500 million, which most of the stations up here, the ones you're familiar with, are participating in, as are the newspapers. And then there probably will be an additional media buy after that. We will do some counting prior to April 1st. We do some group home activity before that. We also do some rural counting in Alaska and in northern Maine. And we'll also be doing, because it's different this year than it was in 2010, skiers. Back then, we were coming out of a recession. They didn't have any problem recruiting people. This year they do. So one of the perks that they started offering, housing. Well, if you think of Vermont, April 1st, transition for the skiers. So we'll have to get in earlier to make sure that we count people. Again, count once, count them in the right place. So that's pretty much the rollout. It'll go through pretty much the end of July. We have a requirement to report the results to the President by December 31st, 2020, and to Congress for redistricting by April 1st, 2021. The area census office will be located, for those of you that you are familiar with, where Social Security used to be on Pearl Street, 58 Pearl. That's where we are now, since Social Security moved over to the Innovation Center in Burlington. That's being stood up as we speak, so Census Operations is coming online. They're really the ones that are responsible for the counting. Did I mention, because you folks mentioned homeless, we count the homeless across the country on 2 days and nights, March 30th and 31st. And so Census Operations will be working with some of you on that. Also with the police, to make sure we know where they are, so we can count them. So we do have a requirement to count them as well. So that's pretty much the overview from my perspective. One thing I will leave you with, because all of you use data in this room, and you probably use a lot of census data, there's a program that the Bureau has that's not really well known, but it's about to be. It's called the DataDissemination program. And the telephone number for that is 844-ASK-DATA. It's free service from the Bureau for those of you that are writing grants, that need statistical information, whatever kind. You probably have a sense that we have it. You may not know how to extract it. This is a free service. If you call that number, it's answered by a live body. They'll work with you, make sure you can get it. They'll help you structure the data. If they need to come out, they will. I had them here in April working with the Free Press, Times Argus, and some of the journalism students from the various schools around here. So they do a lot of that. They do seminars, webinars on grant writing, data manipulation, things like that. So it's a good program. So, any questions? Yes?
I have one, and it's not intended in any way to be political the way that it's been at the national level, but in my district we have a lot of migrant farm workers who are under the radar, and one of the working on dairy farms, and of course dairy farms, one of the things that they do for U.S. citizen as well as migrant workers is offer housing, electric, and heat. Is there an anticipated difference in the ability to gather head counts based on whether or not the question of are you a legal U.S. citizen appears on the census?
It's not on.
Okay, all right. I have been trying not to pay attention to some of these things, and apparently I was successful.
It is not on. If it were on, we would have had 8 questions. Since it's not on, we have 7 questions.
Okay.
So it's not going to take very long to fill this out for anybody. Those of you that are my age would remember the long form of the census. We stopped that in 2000, and that was replaced by the American Community Survey, which I referenced earlier, which is a sample that goes to every census tract in the country every year, and then it's reported as a 5-year moving average. So only 7 questions, no citizenship questions.
Okay. We can applaud that.
What was that? I'm sorry.
We can applaud that decision.
Yes.
Because it means that we will have a better count.
You're going to have a better count.
A better count.
You talked about the advertising. Are you doing any kind of online advertising? I'm thinking with younger individuals. A lot of them don't listen to the radio, don't watch TV. They get all their the television they watch streamed online, they stream all their music?
The short answer to your question is yes. There's a lot of social media activity that's going to be going on. And quite frankly, one of the things that we rely on for that is you all. As your trusted and respected members of the community, you have your own social media sources. So things like Front Porch Forum, whatever mailings that you do, whatever those sorts of things you use to stay engaged with your clientele. We would ask you to promote the importance of the census too. I mean, how easy it is to respond on it. Jill?
Yes.
Well, Jill's going to talk a little bit about the recruiting effort. Just one thing I will say about it, 355,000 jobs nationally. It's the largest single effort the United States undertakes in peacetime.
So hello again. I'm here as a recruiter. I have jobs to offer to people of all ages once they've turned 18. So here's the basic requirements. 18 years old, a U.S. citizen, right now that's still the case. A valid, I always have to look at this because it's a list. Social security number, valid email, because that's how they apply and how they get verified that that's theirs. And for men born after 1959, selective service number. So the jobs for the census vary from, let me just tell you about the best part. $16.50 an hour up to $18 an hour are the bulk of the jobs. They're part-time, work at home, flexible, daytimes, evenings, and weekends. Typically someone needs a car, so that's where a driver's license comes from. People who have a common language with communities in Vermont, that's really, I don't want to forget that point. So someone who speaks any of the African languages we really need that, especially in the Burlington community. And I really don't know if there's an immigrant community and if that's a big community in the St. Albans area.
Mostly Spanish.
Yeah, primarily Spanish speaking, otherwise small pockets here and there of other languages.
So if you know folks who are interested, thank you, they're interested in a second job or a job period who speak common language, we really appreciate that. So the jobs range from listers, who are folks who go around to validate what's on the ground. So that building is brand new, 10 years ago it wasn't there. This building was a single-family home, and now it's apartment building of 10 has been built there. So those jobs do pay $16.50 an hour, and they are work from home. They're given a laptop. So anybody who likes technology and would like to be part of that. The other jobs, the biggest bulk of those jobs are the census takers and the folks that don't respond to the invitation to go online and complete the survey. Or the 3 or 4 reminders that come in the mail after that, but please go online and complete the survey. I just tell people, if you'd like to enjoy your dinner without a knock on the door, just go. It's 7 questions, so you can go online and do that. Census takers will be the next round of people who come to the door and just say, please, how can I help you do this? I think there are jobs, about 50 jobs in Burlington at the office that will be coming up. So people who clerk positions, supervisors positions, managers positions, and what am I leaving out? Job-wise. You have questions about these?
Just training is paid, mileage.
Oh, thank you, yes. So training is paid, pay is weekly, mileage is paid, it's really important, 58 cents a mile.
Where do people apply? How do they apply?
Good, you have a card, right?
I have a card with that on it. But you know what, I want to give you this card, which has the where to apply, and it's a 2020census.gov website. But I also want to give you my personal email if you have any questions. It's ready. It's Jill, Jill, .s.myers, MEYERS, at 2020census.gov. Pass these around. There's actually quite a bit of information on these little cards. So
Let's ask you, what's the start or the hiring and the finish time? timeframe.
What a
Mark?
good question. I really appreciate that. So the jobs are typically about 10 to 12 weeks in length. And they're intermittent. So someone could work for the first batch of 10 or so weeks and then stop working for the winter months typically, and then start up again in the spring. But there are jobs that are happening, as Bob talked about, the work that we do before the April 1st Census Day, group count and that sort of thing. So people can also opt to stay in and continue working throughout. The census will wrap up everything that needs to be done September of 2020. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Could you give us your email again? Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Jill.s as in Susan, .myers, M-E-Y-E-R-S, at 2020census.gov. So these are great second income. You know what, we need people to do these jobs in order for this to work. And the money that comes into the programs that you all are a part of, to say nothing of things like hospitals and roads and schools, I know that you're part of that too. We need the folks to do the work. So if you know anyone who would like to remodel their kitchen for 10 weeks of supplemental income, or who just simply is homeless and needs a job that is where they have a good connection with the community. Any other questions? Thank you.
Just one last thing, I'll just give you my email also. I apologize, I didn't give it to you before. It's Robert.F as in Frank, .stock, S-T-O-C-K, at 2020census.gov. And just like to leave on one thing on a personal note. I've been with the Bureau now for about a year, and prior to that I was always in the private sector. So this has been very illuminating to me over the last year, the ecosystem that you folks work in. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes.
Very moving. Thank you.
Well, thank